Thank you. Welcome to the Committee of the Whole meeting, District of Sechelt for Wednesday, April 26, 2023. And I'd like to take this moment to recognize that I'm chairing this meeting on the lands of the Sechelt Nation, and our hearts and minds and prayers are certainly with our neighbors this week, especially and always. I would ask for any calls of declaration from the council. Seeing none, I will look to the mayor, who just wants to say a couple words before we look at the agenda.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to take a minute to acknowledge and thank all of the administrative assistants who support us in our daily lives. Today, I'm told, is Administrative Assistant Day. So I want to thank everybody, and especially on behalf of all of us on council, to Tracy Forster for her never-ending support and hard work on her behalf. So I hope she's listening and is suitably embarrassed by that. But thanks very much.
She is listening and smiling. Thank you.
Good. And I should also thank you for stepping up to chair. I seem to have a bit of a bug, and it's best I don't share. So
we appreciate that. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, any changes or additions to the agenda? Councillor Toth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to make a motion to remove item 5.4 from the agenda. I don't believe it to be relevant to the business of the District of Sechelt.
I will second that motion to open it for discussion.
Could I just have a comment on why you don't feel it's worth discussing? Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank
Yes.
you. Yeah.
Thank you.
At the end of the day, the Fire Protection District is an independent government. They don't report to the District of Sechelt Council. We don't fund their operations. This is not pertaining to issues that the District of Sechelt has any control over. So I don't think this belongs on one of our agendas, particularly as an item of business.
Any other comments? Go ahead.
Oh, yes, thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, when this was given to me on Friday, I asked that it be included in the agenda for correspondence. I think that was the intent, that we receive it as something that was sent to us. It was unsolicited. And to that extent, I don't have a particular problem with what we do with it. The point of it was to provide it as correspondence and seek council's further input into what we do with it.
I'm used to turning on and off. To the corporate officer, would we normally accept that into correspondence as part of a regular agenda?
It certainly could be placed on a regular agenda as a part of the correspondence package. In this case, as the mayor indicated, he had asked that it be added to this agenda for today.
As correspondence, yes. Yeah.
Good with that? Yeah. All right, so the question on the floor is, how about the question on the floor is that it's removed from this agenda. Can I amend that to make an amendment to that we add it to council correspondence for the next regular council meeting? Is there a second for that amendment? And we'll vote on the amendment. All in favor? And opposed? Councilors Toth and McLaughlin. So that passes. So the resolution is now that we remove it from this agenda and add it to the regular meeting council correspondence for the next regular council meeting. All in favor? And opposed? Councilors McLaughlin and Toth. Okay. Sorry?
Just to clarify, just to get it off this table, because Councilor Toth had some good points about where it belongs. It's not a business item, it's just communications at that point, when it goes to the council. meeting. I'm assuming.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, no appointments and okay, so then we need to still adopt the agenda. Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda, please? As amended. Thank you. And second? And all in favor? So carried. No appointments and delegations, no new business, moving to 5.1. 5-year financial plan and tax rate presentation from Director Douglas. Thank you.
Thank you. So at the last time we were talking budget, I promised to have the draft 5-year financial plan in front of committee of the whole prior to it going to council for the first 3 readings. And so we worked very hard to get it to this meeting today. It is being provided here for information only today. We're not anticipating any recommendations. It will be coming to next week's council meeting with 3 other bylaws. It's really to get a comfort of what it looks like and what it is. And so I'll just speak to a few items from my report. So as directed, we included the 7.2% tax increase into this 5-year financial plan for 2023. That broke down into 4.2% for operations and 3% for capital. The total tax rose by just under $1 million, $988,000 from 2022 to $13,145,106. And just kind of going through the report a little further, we're budgeting for $18 million in capital projects for 2023 in the general operating fund. And then going to sewer and septage, they are separate in the report. We're looking at increasing fees by 6.65%. So that's a $41 increase to most homes within the district of Sechelt. Commercial was also increased by the same amount. And septage as well. So along with this bylaw, the sample bylaw or the draft bylaw you see today, we'll have a bylaw for the septage increase, the sewer increases, as well as the tax rate bylaw. We just dropped down into the bylaw. The first Schedule A is the 5-year plan outward. You can see that this also includes this consolidated 5-year financial plan includes general operating fund, sewer operating fund, and septage all in one plan. That's the way we approve it as just consolidated, and then I've included in the package each operating fund or operating area or operations. So you'll see there's a 5-year financial plan there for general operating fund, sewer, as well as septage. And it's just the breakdown of what it looks like. Overall, you see that on the last line, capital purchases, we're budgeting for $23 million overall in capital for all 3 areas. And funding ranges from development cost charges to grant contributions to borrowing and transfers from reserves. Schedule B is requirements in the community charter that need to be included on the bylaw. The first one is the portion of revenue by source. And So it just shows you that, the breakdown of revenue taxation is by far the largest amount at 38%. Grants and contributions have to be second most, we're at 24%. And then sewer fees and charges and parcel taxes equal about 13% of the revenue. The second part there is the distribution of property taxes. That's also a requirement that's in the community charter. And I'll pause, talk a little bit about this. So this breaks down what each property class will be paying in taxes. So if you look at the little chart at the top of page 9, you'll see that residential bear the greatest amount of tax in the district of Sechelt. We'll be bringing in just under $11 million, $10,923,000, which is 85% of the taxes that we do bring in. The second largest is the business other at 12.3% or $1.5 million. And then the remainder of the classes make up, on just over $300,000. Looking at page 10, we've included the capital funding, where it comes from. There's a chart there that you can see for 2023, $23 million, same number that's in the 5-year plan, and it breaks down what the funding sources are for the 23 million. And finally included in the bylaw is the proposed utilization of reserves. Community charter talks to, showing what reserves you transfer from. And so that's what this chart is all about. The rest of the information that I've included today is supplementary information. It has all the additional operating requests listed there. And your first look at the 5-year capital plan. And it includes the motions passed by committee of the whole, recommend to council to include in the 5-year plan for 2023. Outward, we have a DCC bylaw that we've utilized information there for other years, as well as, if we have a program like paving program, it goes out to 5 years. And we have an equipment replacement plan, which also goes out 5 years. And then other projects we need to get onto, and they've just been appropriately slotted in a year. So really the only, real year you're really approving is 2023, but it's a 5-year plan. And I think that's it.
Great, thank you. Any questions from council? Go ahead, Mayor. I see your hand up.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Yes, just for council's, I suppose, benefit. I support all of this. I appreciate how much work goes into it, and that staff are working according to standard, or what's become standard operating procedures for some years. But I want to flag for council on page 7 something that I think causes a lot of trouble in communities across BC. And that is, if you look at page 7, 2/3 of the way down, you see a line called net operating activity. And in that, if you read that, it shows that we have a surplus. We're projecting a surplus for 2023 of over $11 million. That's, without getting into the myriad of accounting details, that I suggest is not the best presentation. And it certainly doesn't reflect that we have a surplus of $11 million, which has been reported in the media in the last few months. All the municipalities having surpluses. So I just want to flag that for everybody. We are not projecting having multiple years of surpluses. I know Mr. Douglas agrees with me on that. And I hope that over the course of this year, I, with some of the other mayors, will be able to bring some influence on, frankly, my profession, which is the Chartered Professional Accounting Association, to change some of the public sector accounting processes, because this approach to me is doesn't provide the best information it could to the public. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from council? Great. Thank you, Director Douglas, and all of your staff for all the work that's gone into this budget period.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, first quarter division reports, corporate and community services.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. So this was the last quarter for Administration Division, which includes communications, corporate services, and human resources. And arts and culture falls into communications as well. So for communications, just a quick overview, there was a variety of things that we had our manager of communications working on, from the opening of Hackett Park to improving internal communications to the support of the new website. So she's been kept fairly busy. You will have read that in our arts and culture department, as you know, the SIP grants were reviewed, and we also received and applied for and received 2 grants for the BC Fairs and Festivals Events Fund. In corporate services, this was our first full quarter of our new corporate officer, Carrie Ann Wilson, who has done an excellent job and has been running short without the deputy corporate officer. So that will be hopefully changed by June 1st. And then in HR, we had giving and receiving feedback was given to the managers and supervisors from a external parties, was helpful training, and our human resources advisor position was created. So she is responsible for full cycle recruitment and continues to support our HR admin functions. And then moving forward into Q2, this division will also house facilities and parks. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Lots of changes. Any questions from council? It's Roberts. Oh, Miss Mayor Henderson, all good? Great, thanks so much. Moving on to planning and development. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, Director Douglas. Financial services, I skipped right over you.
Thank you. Yes, financial services, we have had a busy quarter. We've spent a lot of time focused on the preparation of the 2022 financial audit and financial statements that we'll be seeing next week, as well as the 2023 budget. It is next year, we hope to have them a little bit more separated in time, but this year they're basically laid over top of each other at the same time frame, which just causes a lot of or some stress. Let's see. There are a couple of new accounting standards coming into play for next year. So we've had training, and we're working towards producing the documentation that our auditors will need for next year's audit. And so we've struck an internal committee that is working on what they call the to roll out this new standard. And We continue to participate in the Asset Management Steering Committee, which is run by Kevin. Kevin is our Asset Management Coordinator. Procurement, we've had a very busy quarter with procurement. And we continue, we plan it'll be a very busy year actually with procurement. And we've put out a lot of RFPs and have awarded, a lot of things already, and there's a ton more to come. And then for IT, some of the highlights here, we've rolled out our new ticketing system for our help desk internally. We have completed some of the upgrades in this room here for audiovisual, which are getting better every time we get into the room. The website redesign continues. Although we've launched it, we're enhancing it all the time, and we're going to be adding an intranet to it for staff and council as well. And we've had a couple of casts on our system to see how hard it is for somebody to penetrate our firewalls and things, and we've had a lot of success so far with that, which is a great thing. And that's it for now.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Councillor Toth.
Thank you. I think it's page 30. Yeah, it's page 35. The third and fourth to last bullet points there, just above the fast facts. It's interesting to see that staff are already looking at ChatGPT and AI, both in terms of a security analysis, but also in how AI tools may help with staff productivity going forward. I've been following this emerging industry, and I'm looking forward to seeing more about how we can use it to better the work we do here at the district. So I'm looking forward to that. Thank you.
Councillor Bell.
Through the chair. My question is just on page 34. It's just more of a clarification. Noting the Jane Bowers Dog Park and the park storage area. Just a little bit of context behind that. We're seeing more problems in those areas in terms of security.
Yes, we've installed security cameras in that area, and I believe it actually has been already helpful.
Okay.
I think there was some vandalism done there, and we were able to capture some of it. But
Thank you.
Mayor Henderson.
Thank you, Chair. I could add to that too. I'm aware that there's been a number of problems in the adjacent marsh, and I think the security cameras in the dog park in particular have the potential to identify people coming and going. My question, which doesn't need an answer immediately, but page 36, I just found it curious. The statistics were given on emails. The top bullet says 111,000 emails were received, and the fifth bullet down says 41,000 emails were scanned. As I say, I'd appreciate staff maybe taking that away and explaining what am I missing? Because I would think we were scanning. I assume we scan every email. I'd just be interested. No answer required for now. Thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, we shall move on to planning and development then.
Thank you, Chair Rowe. My pleasure. So planning and development, of course, includes development services, building department, and bylaw enforcement. And all three of the departments within this division spend a significant amount of time in Q1 relating to implementation of the new regulatory scheme for the short-term rental of dwellings for tourist accommodation. And that will and has continued into Q2. And we feel that in this coming couple of weeks, we'll be really through the bulk of that. And we can carry on focusing with other planning endeavors and support for housing. Within the development services, we still see a wide range of small developments, lot split applications and so forth, through to a number of townhouse rental building applications. Council has seen at least one, if not more, on basically each agenda so far this year. There's more coming. So it's steady, not necessarily overwhelming, but steady. Early in Q1, we were scoping the background report to create a project plan for the official community plan review. Our senior policy planner did depart in late January, and for budgetary reasons, we've yet to replace that position. And that's something you'll be moving toward, and I hope to report to council or committee of the whole in 2 weeks with options for how to move forward with OCP review and related items. Within the building department provides pre-application advice and support. It continues to prioritize and turn around very quickly tenant improvement requests for businesses and business licenses. We also have in for building permit a number of what we call type 3 or complex buildings, TELUS Living, Green Court, Community Services, Ebtide, etc. TELUS Living is very close, I believe, waiting on civil drawings and getting very, very close. So those are exciting, as well as the TELUS Marina, which was a development permit considered by council. So a number of building permit applications. Mr. Nias has been gearing up for code changes and had presented it 2 weeks ago, a committee of the whole potential bylaw amendments, working on an animal control bylaw, which council will see in the near future. And permit numbers remain strong, and I think revenues will reflect that throughout this year. Bylaw enforcement, we briefly had one position vacated, and that has now been filled with an internal posting. So we are very pleased to have back to 2, looking forward to potentially adding a 3rd as we see budget adopted and short-term rental implementation program rolled out. And otherwise, bylaw officers are busy with a large variety of issues, from noise, zoning and land use related issues, parking, traffic, as well as some of the other homelessness related issues, and providing support where they can, working closely with our CMP and their colleagues here in the organization as a whole, and keeping steady and making progress on all accounts. Thank you.
Thank you. Great news to hear that job's been filled. Any questions from council? Councillor Shepherd.
Quick question to the chair. Could I ask if the Granicus software program, which is monitoring all of the hosting, short-term rental hosting sites, has been employed yet? Thank you.
The staff, yeah.
Yes, great question and oversight on my account. Yes, we've reached agreement with Granicus on contract extensions to the software, supplying them with data. We have a meeting with them this week for some training and moving forward. And so, while not actively being used, in the process of being set up, and we'll be ready for the summer season.
Thanks. Mayor Henderson.
Thank you, Chair. I wonder, Director Allen, could you give council your more comments on you referenced a significant amount of time and effort in the short-term rental process. How can you, I don't know, sort of define what that means well, somehow, and also what impact, if any, it's had on other activities in the department? Thanks.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Be happy to. We have really divided up the work quite evenly and fairly within the division. The building officials have been earlier on in Q1 conducting safety inspections of type 1, type 2 facilities for CO2 monitors, fire extinguishers, safe exit, egress, and so forth. We then looked at how to unroll the temporary use permit advertising. Our communications manager was involved, administrative staff, advertising, notifying, reviewing temporary use permit applications, helping council agree upon an evaluation matrix, doing the first round of those, taking a step back, considering whether or not lawful non-conforming use could apply, reviewing all of those submissions, working with our own legal counsel, receiving questions from property owners, legal counsels, ongoing many emails and calls every day, appeals, requests for reconsideration. Second round of temporary use permits report is underway and will be published at the end of this week. And reviewing the lawful non-conforming applications, approximately 2/3 were granted approval and approximately 1/3 were not, primarily due to parking and or secondary suites, back and forth with applicants, site visits to review parking, and so on. And lots of inquiries, particularly from those who have not yet reached the ability to receive business license. And so where we're at with that on other areas is I started a staff report back in March last month, which is just only now resurfaced to my desk. We have an applicant for development who we have been holding at bay for 2 or 3 months, who was frequently asking for updates and progress, and we just haven't had the time, the space to work on that. Mr. Hall, our development planning manager, spending a significant amount of his time on short-term rentals rather than development review, leaving basically Sven to be the one person to review developments and applications. And so it feels as though we are a square or two short, particularly with the vacancy in a senior policy planner position. And frankly, doing very well under the circumstances, but it has been the front and center of our daily lives since December. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else, Council? Councillor Shepherd?
Sorry, one more question to the chair, if I could, staff. It's a huge amount of work with the rollout of implementation of this new bylaw. But I wonder if one additional item may be a comprehensive mapping that we could see of all of the type 1, type 2 and approved type 3 licenses, so that as applications come forth to council, we council have a better sense of where all of these new applications are. Because obviously there are some areas, and I'm thinking of Sandy Hook, where there's a huge concentration of them and would be problematic adding more. Thank you.
Is that a possibility in your world?
Yes, and thank you, Councillor Shepherd, for the reminder. We do acknowledge and that we're giving them to you in batches and trying to make that decision and look at it in the bigger context. And so we can produce a map of what's been approved, yes, in the different types. So we staff can work on that and produce something for council and the public.
Thank you. And Councillor Bell. Sorry, Councillor
That's
Inkster.
okay. That's okay. We were looking at staff that way. I was wondering, I think that's a good question to get a map of the approvals. And obviously, Director Allen has indicated it would come back to us soon. I'm assuming that's what Director Allen meant. Will that map then is the number of approvals before us to be placed on the map the end of the approvals? And if not, will the map be regularly updated and provided to council? Councillor Shepherd did point out an area of Seashelt where there are quite a large concentration and some large community concerns. So that's why I would like to hear an update in terms of if additional and or ones that were in the approval stage end up in that neighborhood. Thanks. Question through you.
Thank you. To staff.
Question being, can we produce the map, keep it up to date and so forth? At risk of speaking for others who will be making this map, I would say yes. I do believe we could do that and keep it current. And we add them as shape files within our GIS system, and Kevin Durkee, our GIS and asset management coordinator, has been assisting us as well. So I will say the short-term rental project, while being led by Planning and Development Division and our 3 departments, have had significant help from IT, GIS, finance as well. So it has been a true team effort, and we'll take these comments and note them and discuss with staff and do the best we can.
Thank you, Councillor Bell.
And through to Director Allen. I'm just wondering, I heard in your report about an appeal process. And I know we probably talked about that, and I don't need a lot of detail on it, but we do have an appeal process within the system now, or what does that look like?
Great question. Is challenging. The Local Government Act, Section 528, which speaks to lawful nonconformity relating to land use bylaws, provides parameters. It does not specifically provide appeal process, nor did we find this in our procedure bylaw. The closest would be Section 60 of the Community Charter, which indicates where a business license has been denied by the license inspector, a property owner has the right to appeal to council. So that's the closest comparable we can find. Generally speaking, or the system is that there's that checks and balances between staff and council so that we're not obstructing council's decision and so forth. So I think one would have the right to appeal to council. Every time each time, 3 or 4 times we received an appeal request, we have considered it and truly treated it fairly for due process. I think there was one case where we, in fact, did change our mind, but the other ones we felt the facts were clear. So we've had to review this and think about best practice in the event of unknown next steps. We have offered the opportunity for 3 or 4 of them to write a letter to council to file an official appeal. Although they haven't applied for a business license yet because we're still at temporary use permit. If they haven't applied for a temporary use permit, they've not been granted lawful non-conforming status, then the next step logically is to apply for a business license. If we've already told them that we're not going to issue it, then that's in a sense a denial. And now they're at the point where they could appeal to council. And this hasn't happened yet. This would be new for us.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, any other questions for Director Allen? And seeing no hand, okay, let's move on to Engineering and Operations, Director Dillon.
Thank you, Chair. Engineering Operations is responsible for sustainable infrastructure, engineering projects, public works, and the wastewater departments. Last quarter, Parks was within the Engineering Operations division, and next quarter it will be in Corporate and Community Services. So some of the Parks activities are reported under my area. If I was to sum up our quarterly report, I would say it's projects, and more projects. A lot of projects out there right now. Of course, some council's aware of the ones that were recently tendered. Cost escalations present a huge challenge right now to the whole construction industry. So we're trying best to manage that. At the moment, we have Reef Road bike lanes as well as Inlet Avenue reconstruction out to tender. So we're hoping that we get the prices we want for those, but those are out right now. On the operational side of things, last quarter, Parks had a successful opening of the new playground at Hackett Park, quite a successful event. Unfortunately, we lost the manager of Parks, but we're hoping to gain somebody new in the future. And in terms of wastewater, everything was functioning well. We do have some big studies that are underway. The septage receiving long-term plan is kicked off now. We're in the data gathering and gap analysis phase right now, and hopefully have more to report to council on that in the near future. Transportation master plan is getting close to the end, and there'll be stuff coming to council on that as well. In early stages of writing the request for proposals for the DCC bylaw comprehensive update. So there's a lot of studies going on right now. I mean, most municipalities to take on even one of those studies would be a lot of work. So we're doing about 4 of them right now. And I think one of the exciting things that has happened is that the operations center is reaching the finish line. So expecting to have staff move into that facility in the next quarter. Thank you.
Awesome. Any questions for Director Dillon? Councillor Bell.
Thank you. Through the chair. One of the things that after the Hackett Park, great success of opening, there was a few letters that came through around accessibility. And I'm just wondering, I know there was some great follow-up work on that. I wonder if I could just have a little bit of an update on that, or if anything's happening.
Thank you for the question through the chair. When we did the cost estimating for what it would take to put in a full rubberized surface, the numbers coming in were in the magnitude of $300,000 to $400,000, of which we didn't have. You know, project escalations being what they are, money's tight these days. So what we are looking at doing in the future, and this will obviously be in Director Roberts' area, is perhaps putting in some rubberized pathways to facilitate accessibility. We did put out some communication that although aspects of the playground may not be fully accessible to the wheelchair, there was inclusivity in terms of the types of different toys and things that were at the playground that were included into the whole design process. So yeah, we're going to apply for a grant in the future on that. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. And that was a great follow-up too. I appreciate that. Back to the community. I know there were some concerns. Thank you for that work. Great. Good. We'll keep our eye out for a grant for that. Thanks.
Any other questions for Director Dillon in this report? Oh, the sound went up. Okay, Mayor Henderson.
Thank you, Chair. Early in the report, I don't have the page right in front, but there was reference to the Snicket Park washroom. Planning continues. I'm just wanting to make sure I'm on the track or whatever, that we have the unit. What is it we're waiting for to install it?
Thank you for the question through the chair. So what's happened with Snicket Park is it's been held up because of archaeology. We have the washroom. We have a plan to have it installed. When the initial assessment was done, they uncovered an arrowhead. And so the provincial archaeology branch requested follow-up assessment work. We did that. And now they potentially asked for more follow-up work. So I'm trying to follow up with the archaeology branch to indicate that this has gone on for quite some time now, and we need our approval so we can get on with the project. And so that's what's holding it up. Thank you.
Thanks. Yes, if I may, Chair. Yeah, I think we need that installed. We need it for the summer. The volume of demand for that facility will only go up. So hopefully you get some cooperation. Madam Chair, may I, one other question?
I'll give you one more. Yeah.
Most kind. Regarding wastewater and the Water Resource Center, I did ask, I believe, a couple of months ago for details on how often or how many days we have been using the membranes. And I wanted to repeat that request. I'd like to know specifically the number of days we were using it. Presumably that defines how many days we've not been using the membranes, and the qualities that we've been getting as a result. I guess the other thing I'm aware of from the old days or the last time, council needs to be informed, and I guess I'd ask, have we been in compliance with the regulations? Because I recall from when I was the mayor the last time, we were reminded very firmly that we needed to be in compliance at all times because there were risks associated with being out of compliance. So if we could be assured of that either now or in the near term, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Go ahead, Director Dillon.
Thank you for the question through the chair. So I think I provided this information previously when I did my engineering 101 at Committee of the Whole, but we are largely in compliance. There have been some isolated incidents where we were marginally above our 10 total suspended solids, 10 BOD5 criteria that we have to meet. Usually it's been in the range of 12. And I don't have an exact number on the dates. And in terms of the days we've had to run in filter bypass mode, I have requested that information. I think they are dealing with some staff kind of shortages right there. So we'll follow up again. I noticed the manager of wastewater is in the Zoom meeting. If she has any additional information on that, I would invite her to turn on her mic and camera at this moment. Okay. I'm gonna have to follow up again with manager of wastewater on
Yeah.
that. Thank you.
Maybe it's a different Christine.
Thank you. Counselor Inkster, thank you for your patience.
So there was a question earlier about the Public Works building. We have the picture here, looking forward to it opening and the workers, our staff being able to utilize that building. Just a quick question. I'm sure you'll be doing this. I'm just looking forward to it. Will we get a tour soon of the new building? Just through you to Director Dillon.
Go ahead.
Yes, thank you through the chair. If council would like a soft opening and a tour, we can certainly arrange that.
That'd be great. Thank you. Counselor McLaughlin.
Yes, thank you to the chair. I just want to comment on maybe some things I haven't heard about that might be recommended for the upcoming reports, or if you could give a slight verbal report. One thing I have noticed is there's no kind of report on how we're meeting any of our sustainability objectives in terms of greenhouse gases and overall kind of general planning goals that we have for that, and they are measurable, and I think we should have reports on that. Also, it might be helpful to have some kind of assessment of social infrastructure that we provide. I know it's not something we generally discuss, but we get into the minutiae about a lot of things. But again, in terms of the kinds of like daycare as a social infrastructure, it's kinds of things that might help us track what we could do as sort of in terms of gap analysis and moving forward. Also, I'm interested in the utilization of district facilities. I know we have great facilities, but I'd like to know how often they're utilized, and maybe we can get some more, drum up some more use for them by understanding how well or not so well utilized they are. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McLaughlin. I think the utilization rates of the facilities do come to us, whether it's in the annual report or does staff know offhand? I don't mean to catch you off guard, but I know I've seen it before.
Yes, thank you, your worship. So if you go to page 62 of the agenda, there are some numbers there for rentals at Rockwood, Mission, and Seaside. So for example, rentals at Rockwood were 50 in March. If we could look at different ways to report that, I think this is something Director Roberts would like to probably comment on, but it is provided there in our report. Thank you.
Great, thanks so much. Any further questions, Councilor Shepherd?
To the chair, could I ask about a specific development on page 55, the Heavy's Road development? There's mention of developers engage a new consultant. If I could get a few comments on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you through the
Go ahead.
chair. And I have the manager of sustainable infrastructure who can also comment, but yes, the consultant has been replaced. Previously, it was JB Coast Consulting. And now it is Weber Engineering who's going to be dealing with that. Do you have anything?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I'll just add that they took over the project, I believe, around a month ago, and they're in the phase of reviewing the work that has been done previous. So they've had a few data requests and they're going through the existing design. And then they're going to have to fill in the gaps that were left from the previous iteration. So we're just waiting for that.
Thank you. Follow up,
Sorry,
Sorry, Doc-
one more addition.
Doctor. Oh my God.
Chair. So I did get a manager of wastewater has sent me a message here on that earlier question about the filters and how often we're running them. So the filters, according to our manager of wastewater, run for 5 hours, 2 days a week.
Thank you. Any Councilor Shepherd?
Sorry, just a follow-up question because I was interrupted by Dr. Kern. So as I understand it, so that's their sewer system, the engineer that's being replaced. And is there what's happening with their traffic studies, their discussions or negotiations with MOTI? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question and through the chair. So there's two parts to this development. One is the sewer extension piece, which would be one servicing agreement, and the other part is the actual on-site subdivision. And so they need to do work on both sides. They've done a traffic assessment, and we've also met with MOTI several times to talk about the traffic impacts that may exist beyond just traffic counts, which is what the traffic impact assessment looks at. And what we had agreed on was a left turn lane would be required to service this development. So it's my understanding that they're revising their design to reflect that. There are some other issues that MOTI is working through in terms of the stormwater and work in their corridor and things like that that require approval as well. So those are still forthcoming.
Thank you. And Councillor Inkster.
That particular issue is an interesting one because it's sat empty as the decisions have been made and the decisions have come to council. Just for clarification, with all those questions being answered by staff through you, just an additional one, just to remind me, is that a phased in development? And after what phase and how many units completed would a sewer line go to that property? Just to remind me, please.
Thank you for the question. So it's not a phased development, and the sewer line would have to happen concurrently. All lots depend on that sewer line. There is no sewer there. So no lots could function without that sewer extension.
Follow it.
So they'll be building the units that they've been received approval for as they build a line out there. It's not as
No.
Not phased.
No.
Who said that?
The voice in the
sorry.
ceiling.
Mayor Anderson.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you, Dr. Rowe. No, I just want to make sure I'm following now too. No, the sewer will be fully built. And I'm a little bit uncomfortable with this conversation anyways, because it's very speculative. We've heard there's a new firm of professionals working with the owner. So I think we're best advised to just wait and see what they bring back to us. But certainly the old approach was the sewer would be fully installed before the first unit was built. They stand to be corrected, but I think I'm correct on that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Was that what your hand was up for, or did you also have a question? That was it? All right. Any final comments from the engineering department? It's okay to not have any, but I just don't want to cut you off. You're all good? All right. I think I'd like to close the questions for 5.2 if we're happy with that, so we could move on. Thank you, staff, for all that great information. And we're going to move to 5.3, Dusty Road Well update. And I am assuming that Director Dillon has something to say.
Thank you, Chair. We prepared a report, a project brief on the Dusty Road Well. So it is our intention that it would be for non-potable use, similar to what is done at Ebbtide, and would also serve the operation center in terms of the irrigation we need for all the plantings. Could be used for salt brine production, as well as fill point for parks. And if we're doing that work, it makes sense to turn into a public fill station. So we've outlined a timeline and stated our assumptions around the schedule within that. So I'm here to answer any questions, detailed questions on this from council and the manager of sustainable infrastructure who has been working with the province on the licensing aspects on this is also available. Thank you.
Okay, so just for clarity, this is for information and question answering as opposed to any sort of decision, recommendations, etc.
That's correct. We're working through the process of the project, and this outlines what the process looks like from staff's perspective and where we're at in the process and what the next steps might look like. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Counselor Inkster, please.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, to Director Dillon again and the staff member next to him helping him. This project's moved fairly quickly. Good to see. I'm interested to see the licensing piece to see how quickly that can be approved. I guess clearly because it's non-potable, maybe there'll be a faster movement of approvals because of all the stories we've been hearing about slow approvals. My question, based on the information that's been provided to council recently with the line that could go in the public fill station, is I'm assuming that the information and signage that we provide to the public will be very clear about the use of that water at this point.
Thank you through the chair. It would have to be abundantly clear that it's for non-potable use in a manner similar to what we do for the ebb tide well when we open that up every summer. So it will be entirely non-potable. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Shepherd.
To the chair, I had thought that one of the significant uses for this well, though, was for the fire department. Is that, have there been any, first of all, am I correct? And if so, have there been any discussions with the fire department as to what they would need on site to make use of it? Thank you.
To staff, thanks.
Thank you for the question through the chair. So as part of the planning for this, I think that is an important consideration. Right now, we envision ground level fill points like Dusty Road with a hose, and then perhaps an overhead fill point with a cam fitting. So it could be hooked up to, large water trucks. And so if we can reach out to the fire department and find out, what would be required to be able to have them hook up to that, we'll definitely try and incorporate that into a request to vendors going forward. Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Councilor McLaughlin.
Yes, through the chair. My impression was the resolution we had was to have water testing, to have it tested. Not necessarily to go to this next step to build, to have any kind of plan for having something by August 2023 built or in place. So I'm a little surprised by this because I think we should take it slowly and cautiously. And I don't understand, I don't think you were really given direction by council to really proceed with this at this point. So it's a testing of the quality of water that I would like. And yes, we were concerned about the fire season and using, putting out fires again. And if it's not going to possibly be done by August, that's not really going to help us because we could have fires before then, unfortunately. So I do think maybe we should look at other solutions, maybe some of the non-potable water that comes from the Water Resource Center that cannot be used for drinking or planting would be used for firefighting this summer as a possible source of just some water that we can use for that emergency type situation. Thank you.
To staff.
Yeah,
Yes,
thank
Tony.
you again for the question through the chair. So staff fully intend to follow the right path forward. Safety is of utmost concern to us. As professional engineers, we have a duty and obligation to be safe. And so we're following all the steps. I will defer to the manager of sustainable infrastructure who's been talking to the province about what testing requirements they anticipate would be required for this. In terms of the testing, I would think it would be a quantity pumping test that would be required, but the 25,000 is would not get us all the way there. I think in the interim, we have been talking to various pump suppliers on what it would look like going forward, how we would roll this out. So invite manager of sustainable infrastructure to speak about some of the safety and testing requirements and feedback she's received from the province to date. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. So there was a significant amount of testing done in late 2018 when the well was initially drilled. That included water quality testing against the Canadian Drinking Water Guidelines, as well as well pump testing. So 48-hour step test was done on that well to determine how much water it may sustainably yield. In terms of aquifer, like the nature of an aquifer and the hydrology, that's not that long ago. In conversations with the province, after we did submit an application for groundwater license, it's their feeling that that is a sufficient amount of testing at this time. When they do get to the stage of reviewing our permit, if there are any data gaps or anything that needs to be updated, that would be the time to do it. And that was the advice that I was given by the province.
Thank you. And maybe for Director Inkster, you could introduce yourself, Megan.
Oh, my apologies. Megan Lee, Manager of Sustainable Infrastructure.
Thank you. Any follow-up, Councillor McLaughlin?
Yes, thank you through the chair. Yeah, that may be what the ministry would want, but I think with us, with our particular situation here, we were kind of told that we would get a full range of new testing, looking for contaminants, perhaps from the landfill especially, because I would like to know if that water is being contaminated by the landfill, and particularly, thank you.
Thank you again for the question through the chair. So it's important to kind of visualize how contamination would reach that site. In order for that to happen, you have to have some kind of a breach up at the landfill or septic receiving facility. That takes time to migrate through the groundwater, assuming that would happen. So I think in terms of the province, they would want the most recent water quality testing right before you're ready to open. And one of the other safeguards I think will be needed down the road is what I call an upgradient well. And so basically that would be further up on Lot L. And so that well gets tested for water quality parameters. And then once you pick it up in that well, then you know it's maybe coming down to a lower well and you have time to alter your program. You know, once you have a well up and running and you've tested it and you see contamination at that point, I believe it's too late at that point. You want to actually detect it before it's coming there. So, and in terms of triangulating groundwater and doing what's called a drawdown cone for it, when you're testing for the quantity of an aquifer, usually you would want at least the well you're drawing down from, and then 2 observation wells to be able to triangulate groundwater flow. Now, there might be an opportunity to leverage an existing well, but I think in order to do this correctly, we would need another well at some point, and we could use that for backup water quality testing. And if it's up gradient of the supply well, then it's an extra safeguard. So I think that's the process that's the safest. And I invite the manager of sustainable infrastructure to add more to that, but I think I'm pretty close.
Yeah, that's the reasonable approach if we're going to be using this well long-term to monitor the water quality. Water quality testing could be done at any time and should be done periodically as you use any well, and we do that for the Ebb Tide well as well. But testing now, not knowing when the province is going to be reviewing that data may not be the best use of that money at this time until we have a better sense of the timelines and how close they are to reviewing that data.
Thank you. Counselor Toth and then Mayor Henderson.
Thank you. I just wanted to point out that the resolution that we released at the April 19th meeting says, $25,000 allocated from the capital reserve for the purpose of investigating and preparing conceptual designs for non-potable groundwater fill station and to apply for the water license. It doesn't include any sort of construction costs. We know we're not going to get much for $25,000. So we're a long ways away from turning on a tap at that site. Thanks. Just wanted to clarify that.
And Director Dillon.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know if this was articulated in the project brief. I believe my intent was to, but I do believe that at some point when we've nailed down the actual cost of this, we will have to come back to council for that additional funding because
Yeah, you did.
I don't believe 25,000 will get us to where we need to be. Thank you.
Mayor Henderson. Oh, your hand's down. Do you mean it to be down?
No, I put it down because he recognized me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So, yeah, I agree with Councillor McLaughlin. The intent, at least, of the work or the discussion we had a couple of weeks ago was to get going now. We need water. We need all sources of water for what appears to be a very dry season coming. I'm concerned because I don't believe any of us are water experts, and we need to use experts to assess what we face. So the opportunity to spend this money on conceptual plans as defined by experts in the industry to test the water, because I do think we need to test it now. I don't think if the ministry wants us to test again in the future, well, we'll be testing it anyways. So we would continue to test over and over. Testing isn't expensive. It's getting the initial pumps in and the system underway. Yeah, I have some real problems. I have expressed them to staff in the last couple of days with this approach. I think we should be getting the experts in now and getting them to put out we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, put out a very short concept paper saying this is what we're looking for. We can't afford more than $25,000. Tell us what you can do for it and how fast you can do it. Because we're at a stage that's very close, in my opinion, to an emergency. And I think we've got to start acting like that. The other thing I wanted to point out is I'm concerned with us filing applications for licenses because given I only have a limited amount of knowledge about this, but my understanding of any water licenses, you do need to have other data with it. And I also note that the reference in the report is that it was filed with the Minister of Forest, Lands, Natural Resources and Rural Development. But that ministry doesn't exist anymore. So it's now called the Ministry of Forests, and there's another one called the Ministry of Waters, Lands and Natural Resources. So I think we need to be sure that we don't have to do it all ourselves. In fact, I think in this case, it's something that is best done by people that do this every day for a living.
Any other? Oh, sorry, Director Dillon.
Yeah, through the chair on that point, I think as the licensee and the operator of the well, we are obligated to carry that permit. That's typically how it's done. And I don't think it's like when you go out and, get a housing permit, the contractor takes all the permits. I think in this case, we as licensee and operator, and the fact that we're providing this to the municipality, we have to be the lead on the permitting process. And staff are always, open to the idea of engaging experts, but I think we need to clarify which level of experts. If we're talking about well drillers versus hydrogeologists, I think registered hydrogeologists that are registered as geoscientists with EGBC are the experts. So I'm just to clarify, I would like to understand which experts we're going to be using for this. Thank you.
Mayor Henderson, do you want to comment on that?
Yes, we use whoever is necessary. In this case, I think it's both. Anybody in the industry will have relationships with a hydrogeologist, will have a relationship with one or more well drillers, and I'm probably vice versa. But we could be having this concept paper out overnight and send it out to half a dozen people and see what response we get. We need this, folks. We can't spend all the time discussing and considering what where it needs to be located. We on staff can do the design work that was on the third page of this report, but we need people that would file the applications and tell us what to do next. They can do it on our behalf, but I feel very strongly, as you may gather, that the process that's being proposed is cumbersome and possibly insufficient to get it done in a time frame that will be useful to us.
Thank you, Councillor Adam or Councillor Shepherd, and then Inkster.
I think this is a summary report of the department's activities, and I think we're going too far into the weeds here. Maybe this issue can come up at the next council of the whole, or we have a special session just to discuss it, but perhaps we should move on. Thank you.
Councillor Inkster.
Madam Chair, it is an agenda item and we've asked a number of questions. My concern now is that the requests we've made of staff and the information we'll be bringing back to us and the plans that we've seen in front of us, $25,000 isn't enough. So I'm asking through you to staff if in fact they need to come back to us soon to have that discussion. If we've limited to 25,000, that's clearly the motion. Does it limit what we can do with something that council determined through that motion is a really important project, or in a sense, safety water for our community? I'm asking through you if staff does have a plan soon to come back to us, because obviously it's not presented here, but it does need to come back to us soon for further discussion in terms of costs. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for the question through the chair. So I think it's important just to clarify a few things in our process. So we don't necessarily, for something small like pump testing, things that are under a certain threshold, we can just go out with a request for quote by email. Doesn't have to be a big 30-page long RFP. It could be something very quick. Expressions of interest, we can go out for those. They don't have to be 30-page documents. They can literally be emails. So we have already, or yesterday I crafted an expression of interest to various vendors and pump suppliers just to get a range of costs, availability, lead times on equipment. That doesn't cost the district anything, and either that went out yesterday or it has gone out today. So we're doing that work in the background so that we have fully informed information to come back to council with a plan that can get this done in the right, safe way. And so we're doing all that work in the background, and we're trying to do it as quick as we can. We're doing some things in parallel, but there is uncertainty in this process. And I think one of the biggest things of uncertainty is the time it's going to take for us to get a permit, because we're not going to turn on the taps without a permit. And I think putting in the permit now gets us in the queue with the province. It gives us a reference number. So if we need to pick up the phone or elected officials do and phone somebody at the province, at least they have a number that they can go back and reference. If we don't have that and we try and initiate those communications with the province, then their first response will be, why haven't you filed an application yet? So I think it is important that we get that in. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to be clear around myself, I'm comfortable with how this is progressing. I think we are easy to get way ahead of ourselves. One of the things I've heard though, since this hit the news is, oh my God, what are you guys thinking? Yes, it's non-potable. And then you're going to turn around and it's going to be potable. So just a piece of advice, if you would, around the different standards, if you will, between potable and not. It's not just that, it's not that simple. Right? Please tell me it's not that simple, because that's what I've been telling them. In that you can't just flip a switch and suddenly we're using it for potable water.
So if that's a question directed at me through the chair, I think there's two things like through this whole conversation that I think need to be clarified. One, there's a difference between the standards and the requirements for non-potable water versus drinking water. So for drinking water, you need to additionally get approval from Vancouver Coastal Health. It's a much more rigorous process. There's not just one permit that's required, there are multiple permits required. For non-potable, it's just the provincial use permit, like we have on Ebtide. So that's one distinction. The other distinction is versus when you're supplying water for a municipality, multiple users, versus when you drill a well on your own private property and you get that conditioned and hooked up to your own private system. The requirements for providing it basically a small water system to a community is much more rigorous than what is required for person X doing it at his home. So we're following the process that for non-potable, if we were to go to drinking water, we would additionally have to go through Vancouver Coastal Health approvals and multiple other approvals to finalize that. And then there would have to be a degree of water treatment. Where does it get introduced into the SCRD water system? I mean, SCRD, they own the system. They would have to improve, they would have to approve acceptance of that water into their system. So there's a whole bunch of things that have to be considered. So the route we're taking is for non-potable water. And
Yeah.
I think the public can be rest assured that, there's checks and balances throughout the system that
Okay.
would prevent us from.
I'm going to
looking
put
at
this
drinking
YouTube
water.
on loop at work. Thank you, Director Dillon. I don't mean to be flippant, but this is it's a tough subject and people feel all sorts of ways about it. Councillor Bell.
Yeah, to the chair, I'm going to support basically what Councillor Rowe has said. I think I've heard the same things, that people are still concerned about risk. They're concerned about that obviously the testing that's being done. So I think the more clear we are, and what we've heard today helps me understand that there is a regulations and process that we go through for potable and non-potable. I think it's really clear that we get that message out, and that I'm clear there's like a checklist that says we're doing this, this, and this. It's not that I don't feel that you're not doing your job. That I know you're doing very, very well. But I think that questions is in my mind. This risk is a risk. And so I just want to make sure that we're really clear what those are. You clearly started to outline those. This is what we're doing. I like that. It makes it clear for me to know there is a process to go through for both. And I think that's helpful for me in my decision-making going forward. And I think it's also helpful for our community, because our community is still concerned. And I still want to recognize that we do have a serious problem of water. So we're trying to take care of two very, very difficult things here, but we need to make the best decision for our community. Thank you.
Okay, and we are here, this is here before us for information. So are there any other questions Seeing, oh, sorry, Counselor Inkster.
Yeah, thanks. Just really quick. This issue is about communication. Communication, including the question I had at the beginning about any kind of water we have on site and what it's to be utilized for. I think we just have to cross all our Ts and dot all our Is with this one. Because we know there's water there, but we need to be clear on the community that what it's for. Thank you.
Thank you. Lachlan,
Thank you through the chair. So if I could just comment on that diagram, the flow chart, page 70. Maybe it'd be helpful to specify a little bit about the decisions we're making. And if we get kind of a if-then diagram, rather than it looks like everything's happening at once. Which I understand you're going to be, you're going to be doing some background work to get people lined up and do costs and stuff like that. But I think for the public to see this, I think it would be helpful to say, we're doing this, this is what we're looking for. If this goes ahead and it's turns out fine, then we go to the next step, then we go to the next step. So the public understands the clarity and the decision-making in the process. That's just my input. Thank you.
thank you. Okay. Oh. Counselor Toth has pointed out that Mayor Henderson has his hand up.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I agree with Councillor McLaughlin. We just need to get moving. There's risks all over the place, and we've got to make sure we do pursue every option and we assess the risks carefully, but we do need water.
Okay, seeing no further hands. I have a motion to adjourn. A second, all in favor? We are adjourned.